Hello you beautiful misfits, my name is Matt and this is Pixel Burn, where I usually take a snarky look at some of the more important, interesting or irritating things to have happened in recent gaming news. Except for episodes like this one where I pick a single topic and flog it into a wet red paste. This year's BlizzCon, the Anaheim-based celebration of all things Blizzard, has come and gone, having brought one or two mildly interesting things to the table. Chief among them, or War Chief rather, being the announcement of Warcraft 3 Reforged, a remastered version of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, originally released in, fucking hell I feel old, by way of this ruddy lovely trailer. But that's a topic for another video made by someone who isn't me. I want to focus instead on another announcement that came out of Blizzard's little Anaheim shindig, one that made this year's BlizzCon absolutely unmissable. In the sense that, unless you were living on an Antarctic research station at the time, you couldn't possibly have avoided hearing about the shitstorm and a teacup it whipped up. And yes, I am fully aware how late to the party I am on this one. That's because I wanted to do more in this video than simply summarise the events in question. I wanted to try and understand why people got so wound up over something that seemed so trivial to me, to get to the root of it all somehow and come up with something resembling a definitive answer. But to even begin doing all that, I have to summarise what it was all about anyway, so let's get on with it. I'm talking of course about the reveal during the convention's opening ceremony of Diablo Immortal, a new instalment of the Diablo series slap bang between Diablo 2 and 3 on the big Diablo timeline, exclusively for mobile phones. The reaction to which was alright, I guess. There weren't any squealers amongst the audience, but the crowd generally seemed okay with it. At first. The metaphorical shit began its collision course with the proverbial oscillating unit during the subsequent Q&A, where this fan, a Diablo 3 streamer going by the handle of Lord Fluffy, voiced the question that had likely gone through most of the audience's collected minds during the big fancy trailer.
Is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this strictly mobile forever?
To which Diablo Immortal lead designer Wyatt Cheng replied,
we don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Yeah, not the best answer he could have given, eh? Not the worst, not by a long shot, but that could have been phrased a bit more diplomatically, shall we say? Plus, he kinda has a point. Now, wait a second, hear me out. If you're watching this video, you probably don't know many people who don't have a smartphone, although such people do exist of course. I've personally met plenty of people with regular old phones that can't even run Twitter, for which I almost envy them in a way. Generally however, if you see someone with a phone, it'll have a touchscreen and you can watch YouTube videos on it. Not everyone has a smartphone that'll run this game satisfactorily however, whereas the majority who attend BlizzCon likely do have one or more consoles and or a decent gaming PC. Because of course they've chosen to prioritise a machine purely dedicated to running games, rather than a phone that loads Instagram a femtosecond quicker than the previous model did. So yes, in that sense, his phone remark comes off as sounding a bit elitist. In fact, it's somewhat reminiscent of Ken Kutaragi's infamous remarks all the way back in 2005 about how people should want to get a second job to buy a PS3. Perhaps that's why this chap in the red t-shirt chose to ask the particular question he did. A question that probably sounded really good in his head.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
Spoken out loud, however, it comes across a tad stroppy and petulant. Nevertheless, it officially marked the beginning of the backlash against Diablo Immortal, succinctly evidenced by the ratio of likes to dislikes on the most recent upload of the trailer. I say most recent upload there because of allegations Blizzard deleted the original trailer after it had accrued 100,000 dislikes, then re-uploaded a new one with a clean slate. Yeah, that went well, didn't it? There have also been allegations that Blizzard are deleting negative comments left beneath the video, which, as it's their YouTube channel, they're well within their rights to do. It doesn't make them look good, sure, but they can still do it. Their channel, their rules. This backlash has also acquired its own counter-backlash, of course, because that's the way things work now on our mutual downward spiral towards extinction. To some of you that might sound a bit like weak milquetoast both sidesism, and that would be a legitimate criticism if we were talking about something actually important like the future of the planet, for example. And not a fucking smartphone game. Except you can't really even pin all this discontent on Diablo Immortal being a mobile-only title. It would not have elicited the same reaction if Blizzard had unveiled it at an Apple or Samsung conference, for example, or through the usual press release to gaming news outlets. People would have seen it, shrugged, and moved on. Nope, the cause of this kerfuffle was a veritable shit sandwich of factors, one of the main ingredients being that the announcement came at the end of BlizzCon's opening ceremony. Historically, Blizzard have used this slot to unveil their biggest and primarily PC titles, your Diablo 3s, World of Warcrafts, Overwatches and StarCraft 2s. Fans have been conditioned to expect that big announcement of an initially PC exclusive title at the end of the opening ceremony ever since the first BlizzCon in 2005, so ending it with a mobile only title is a teensy bit like inviting a bunch of unrepentant carnivores, like myself, to a barbecue in the middle of nowhere only to spring an entirely vegan banquet on them. Yes, I'm sure those vegan sausage rolls and grilled broccoli burgers are very nice, but they're not what I expected from an event advertised as a barbecue.
I want something's flesh.
The reveal of Warcraft 3 Reforged, while not the best capstone for the proceedings, would have still been better suited to the BlizzCon demographic. Sure, it's a remaster of an old game, but it's a good looking remaster of a well loved classic game. And are there really any Diablo fans who've never even touched another Blizzard game?
I'm not a huge Blizzard fanboy. I really don't play any game besides Diablo.
The short animation revealing 2 new characters for Overwatch would have also worked better. It may not be a new game exactly, but Blizzard do make really good cinematics, and this one would have been a memorable conclusion to the proceedings. Overwatch is still popular after all, despite the all-consuming onslaught of Fortnite, and let's not forget it also has the advantage of being multi-platform. Another factor leading to the discontent around Diablo Immortal is it's not being developed solely by Blizzard. They're partnering with Chinese mobile game developer NetEase, who made this game, Endless of God, that... Wait a minute. Yeah, Diablo Immortal does look a teensy bit like a reskin of Endless of God, doesn't it? The latter of which itself is pretty much an outright clone of Diablo 3, making Diablo Immortal basically a skin slapped on top of Endless of God? Do we have a proper term for an official reskin of a game that's a clone of the game you're reskinning it with? Is it just a repackaging? Is it a canonization? Assimilation? Feel free to post your own suggestions in the comments below. Going straight into a Q&A after the reveal with nothing else to show was another mistake. Instead of giving the audience a chance to go away, process their disappointment and work it out of their system, it gave them an immediate outlet for it. To their credit, the audience contained it relatively well. Ignore any talk you hear of them all being entitled whiny crybabies. Everyone who asked a question before Mr. Redshirt here was generally polite, and their questions were relevant ones. Even Lord Fluffy, who admits he was disappointed by the reveal and had considered being dickish with his own question, chose to keep an open mind. One person being a disgruntled snarky ass is no cause to tar an entire fan base, particularly after this.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
I wouldn't be at all surprised if Redshirt Man here had a completely different question prepared before that stunner of a remark.
My real Q&A question, and I had a number of real Q&A questions that I knew would not get an answer, and I really wasn't interested in non-answers. I really wanted to just express the feeling that I think a ton of Diablo fans around the world had. My question is, what mobile games are all of your top developers playing that now all of Blizzard wants to make a bunch of mobile games?
Although I do think some of the people claiming to feel legitimately hurt and angry or screaming
Betrayal!
might be over-egging it a tad. Milord/Milady doth protest too much, methinks, because honestly, why get so worked up over a version of Diablo designed with an entirely different platform and control scheme in mind, not coming out on PC? A port of a reskin of a clone of said reskin's source material, no less. If you're legitimately mad, not merely disappointed, I'm talking red hot furious anger here, that Diablo Immortal isn't coming to PC, then you should perhaps re-examine your devotion to the franchise. Perhaps even your need to be devoted to such things, because you're getting dangerously close to Kingdom Hearts levels of fanboyism, my friend. And to their credit, even most hardcore Kingdom Hearts fans probably couldn't give two shits about that franchise's mobile outings. Now, the less bonkers Diablo fans who were merely disappointed by the announcement, I can understand. Even if talk of Diablo 4 was resolutely off the table, Blizzard had still led people to expect a significant announcement. And no blog post telling people to manage their expectations was going to diminish the hype over that, especially given it was the only Diablo related announcement at BlizzCon this year. One rumour churning its way through the old community mill was the possibility of a remastered Diablo 2, although the unveil of Warcraft 3 Reforged rather put the kibosh on that one. It'll likely happen eventually, but I wouldn't hold my breath for it. Another possibility in fans' minds was more content for Diablo 3, which seemed an entirely reasonable expectation to me. Diablo 3 was launched 6 years ago after all, and fans are, understandably, hungry for more content that isn't double treasure goblin events. An expansion was probably too much to hope for, given Reaper of Souls set things up more for a full-fledged sequel than, say, Reaper of Souls Part 2, but that's not to say Blizzard couldn't have squeezed in a side story set in a new region, right? Either of these things would have lined up better with fan expectations than a reskin of a Diablo clone for a device most Blizzard fans use as a glorified internet-connected alarm clock. Yet even with all those expectations set against them, I still think Blizzard could have pulled off a narrow win here, or at the very least a draw, with just one simple thing. Do what Bethesda did at E3.
Let's roll the cinematic.
Obviously, I don't mean Blizzard should have literally ended it with a trailer for The Elder Scrolls 6. That would have been very confusing, not to mention a complete legal nightmare. I'm talking about a logo for Diablo 4, of course. Doesn't matter if there isn't a final version of it yet and it's subject to change, or the team are still trying to come up with a cool subtitle like Hell War or Angel Geddon. All Blizzard had to do was remind the audience there is a 4th Diablo installment in the works to look forward to. Take the placeholder logo, slap it on an ominous black and red background, and Bob's your sidekick, backlash neutered. But Matt, it wouldn't have told us anything about the game. Neither did the Elder Scrolls 6 trailer at the end of Bethesda's E3 2018 showcase. Hell, even calling it a trailer is a stretch. It was a glorified logo drop that showed us little, told us nothing, and could have been put together by anyone with a basic knowledge of video editing. But it fucking worked, didn't it? The audience went away happy and hyped, and Pete Hines got to see his family again with all his limbs still attached. Yes, it's cynical, mercenary, and a wee bit manipulative. Sometimes you have to dole out a crumb or two of what your audience thinks it wants to sell them the thing you want them to want. It makes even more sense when you consider the similarities between Bethesda and Blizzard. Both got their start developing games for PC, both organise events dedicated to their fans, even if one's an entire convention and the other's an E3 presentation. Fans of each company have similar levels of passion and enthusiasm towards their respective titles. Both companies seemingly have the uncanny ability to stoke hype to incredible levels with consummate ease. Both are incredibly cagey about release dates. I could go on, but I won't. A logo drop. That's all Blizzard had to do. A logo drop. Diablo 4. Boom. Hype levels refueled. Audience generally satisfied. Ruckus avoided. Alright, so the Q&A segment afterwards would have been entirely comprised of questions about Diablo 4. But that's why you have the phrase, "We're not talking about that at this time." Besides Blizzard, you could have then sold Diablo Immortal to the hardcore fans as a fun diversion while they wait. Talking up NetEase's involvement some more would have also reassured them the game wasn't taking any resources away from Diablo 4's development. Of course it isn't doing that anyway, because that's what resource budgets are worked out in advance for, but right now it's undoubtedly what some Diablo fans are feeling. But then why should Diablo fans be mollycoddled? Why should Blizzard have to bow and scrape to their poor hurt fifis? If they love Diablo as much as they claim, they should buy a new, top-of-the-line phone to play this new installment. That's what a real fan of the series would do. I'm being sarcastic, of course, in case that wasn't entirely obvious. This is my clumsy attempt at a segue into figuring out what's to blame for this shitstorm. Blizzard got to where they are today with a combination of inarguably high quality games and the enthusiasm and passion of a dedicated fanbase. Unfortunately for Blizzard, that very same enthusiasm and passion very quickly and fluidly mutated into disappointment and anger, all because of the wrong trailer, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Diablo fans, led to expect something exciting and cool from this year's BlizzCon, were instead left with a reskin of a Diablo 3 clone for a platform most of them barely give two shits about, beyond its basic function as a Twitter portal, news dispenser and communications device. So this whole situation is entirely the fault of the fans for being entitled shitbag munchkins with ridiculous expectations, right? Well, of course not. Because it's publishers like Activision Blizzard, let's not forget the Activision part after all, who gleefully instill these expectations in the first place. The ones staging big events for their customer base to stoke their passion and excitement to a white-hot fever pitch, getting people to tweet with the correct hashtag for a chance to win a game code it costs nothing to generate. Organising paid promotions with whatever streamers or YouTubers are considered hot that month. Generally encouraging people to make video games a core part of their own personal identity, to the point they feel physically attacked at the merest whiff of anything resembling critique, and lash out whenever a publisher fails to meet the expectations they themselves instilled. Expectations bolstered by gushing previews on compliant gaming press sites, telling you to believe the hype, and other buzzwords provided by the publisher's PR department, or the aforementioned streamers or YouTubers of the month who'd sing the praises of a sack of cat litter if you paid them enough. If I had to blame something for why tempers flared over so trivial a thing, I would ascribe it to gaming's collective addiction to hype. Press, players, publishers alike. We just can't get enough of the stuff. Publishers rely on hype to get customers excited enough to buy the games they've poured millions of dollars and people hours into. The press, including YouTubers and streamers, use it to get people clicking, liking, sharing, subscribing, etc. to put more eyeballs on the ads that pay their bills. But why do we, the people who play games, get so emotionally invested in this commercial cycle? And what the fuck is it doing to us? Why can't we be passionate about games without defaulting to one of two behaviours? Thrills to the gills or brimming with piss-boiling rage? Why must the simple fact of enjoying video games be reduced to bad community theatre where if you're not constantly going on about how great games are, you're somehow not a true gamer? What weird Jack Thompson-induced PTSD are we still trying to compensate for? Anyway, according to sources speaking to Jason Presnick-Fuck-Schreier at Kotaku, Diablo 4 is still in the works. It's reportedly been through 2 different iterations under multiple directors and has changed drastically over the past 4 years, but it is in development, and nothing Diablo Immortal could do short of literally murdering the entire dev team will stop that. So this whole kerfuffle was nothing but a pointless, embarrassing waste of everybody's time. Seriously, why get so angry and bent out of shape over a mobile game? It's fucking depressing. So in short, I tried to understand, and I failed. Was there even a point to all this? Maybe it's that as long as we all keep failing to temper our expectations, eagerly buy into the hype machine and willfully set ourselves up for disappointment, time and time again, pointless little flare-ups like this will keep happening. Maybe the medium's unique capacity for interactivity and player empowerment contribute to these expectations. Could it be a generational thing? Are we all fucked in the head somehow? Or is it just that even the most seemingly trivial of issues can't always be tied up in a neat little bow by a YouTube video? Your guess really is as good as mine. I'm going to go play some more Hitman 2 now. That's all for this episode of Pixel Burn. If you liked it, then please do let me know by clicking the requisite buttons wherever they may be this week, and let your friends, your family and Wyatt Cheng know as well. At the very least, I hope you found it tolerable. If you found it more than tolerable, then perhaps consider contributing to my Patreon, alongside lovely misfits like Alex C, Dan Stott and Scott Bush here, whose support for the channel is both invaluable and greatly appreciated. Meanwhile, till next time, as always, you can go now.